Welcome to From Head to Heart and Home. We are super excited to have you listen in on our conversation today. This channel is a channel created by women for women who want to really learn how to take intentional action and create exactly what they want in their lives. With your host, Carla Center, subconscious healer, and myself, Shanda Ceretti, certified coach. So, we are excited as always, right, Carla?
Yes.
We are excited to bring you today's topic, which we just spent several minutes discussing what that would be. And today we are going to be talking about something I find super exciting. It tends to come up a lot, actually, in my life and in pretty well everybody's lives that I talk with and connect with. So, what we're talking about here today is generating. And we'll break that down into what specifically we're talking about. So, not really talking about manifesting and that sort of thing, but more along the lines of taking the action to create the results that you want, right? So, really becoming a generator. Okay, so Carla, let's just dive in and do what we do best.
Okay. Absolutely. And when you're generating, a lot of people do get it confused, like manifesting some like you have this magic wand, everything just shows up.
Mm.
Um, and when you're generating something, inspired action does happen. If
Mm.
you don't get so caught up in the would, should, could, how somebody else did it, the things that you can generate and create while you continuously stick to the inspired action. So you have a feeling and you go do it instead of, I have a feeling, I'll do it later. Things can come up. There are excuses.
Yes.
Your subconscious mind will fight you if it's something that you feel you don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
But you continuously stick to your inspired action and you will be shocked at the things you generate.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of a quote or a saying that I heard around inspiration demands action, or it might be inspiration demands immediate action, one of the two.
Yeah.
Anyways, the point being, when we get those intuitive pings, nudges, hunches, feelings, whatever, act on them. Those are like the breadcrumbs that lead you to the ultimate thing that your heart wants to create, what your soul wants to create, right? And so, like Carla said, you're acting when you feel the thing. So instead of being like, oh, I just had this idea or I just got this feeling that I should do this thing, well, I'll think about it. Let me put it on the list. Let me do that later. Now's not a good time, all the things, right? So it's about taking the action right away so that we don't go into the overthinking and trying to make up all the excuses how we're not going to be able to or how we can't or how it's going to be hard and all that stuff, right? So the idea with generating is that, well, my understanding of generating is that we keep taking the action until we've generated the result. So let's just say, I'll use money because that's an easy one for everybody to kind of understand. Let's just say you have a small business and your goal is to create, let's just make it simple and say you want to make $5,000 in a month, okay, with your small business. So you're like, okay, I'm going to do $5,000 in 30 days. And you set out to do that and you take some action, whatever, however that looks. Then you reach the 30th day and you're like, oh, I didn't hit $5,000. I'm such a failure. And it's like, no, you're not. You get to, like, I want to call it renegotiate the time, right? So it's not so much about the time and putting limitations on how long it takes you to create. It's about going all in on what you want to create until it's created. So the initial idea may have been to do it in 30 days, but what if it took you 60 days? Are you a failure because it took you 60 days? No. You crushed it. You went and did it. You fulfilled it. You stayed in committed action. You created the result. So I see that as a win, right? What do you think, Carla?
I do too. And the thing is that when we put the time limits on it and then start judging ourselves, we are not grateful or we're not feeling like the wins that happen along the way because we are so focused on the end goal. We miss like this is about enjoying what you're doing. That's
Yeah.
the thing why when I was saying you don't have to do it the way somebody else. When you are so in that, like, this is how it has to happen, you're taking away the endless possibilities that can bring something in, that can make something happen, and the joy of it. Like, the most beautiful thing about generating stuff is not what you get at the end, but the ability to just joyously create something that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I love that. And I know for a fact that both you and I have fallen in that trap. I'll call it a trap too,
Yes.
right? With creating our own businesses and growing our own businesses. We go and we buy programs and we buy coaching and that sort of thing from other people. And everybody has their own way of doing things. But like you said, it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And this is kind of how I want to frame it. Absolutely go buy the things, get the support,
Yes.
get the help, all that stuff. Because when you've never done something, you have no idea how to do it. That being said, you have no idea how long it's going to take you. So if you put 30 days on it, it doesn't mean that's it. Time's up. It's over if you don't make it. It's more or less a guideline to keep you connected into what it is that you want to create, right? So it's almost like keeping you focused and testing yourself, like, how much time and energy can I put into this thing? And like, how long will it take me? Like, let's find out.
Right. And when you do, it's like, I was just thinking as you're talking about a little kid in the swimming pool with the floaties or the little noodles thing, like they're kicking around, they have some support, right?
Mhm.
Until all of a sudden they are inspired to just take off. And that's really what the other, working with other people, it's not about not doing stuff with other people. They will inspire you, and the inspired action will come, and all of a sudden you'll be like, aha,
Yeah.
this feels so great. I am so ready just to take off.
Yep.
And so it's not about just sitting there and like, it's all of a sudden I know something that I never knew before. Like sometimes we do, but like you learn. I've taken all kinds of different programs, as I'm sure you have, and little pieces and parts work for me, that, and I appreciate and I'm grateful for everyone. And then what comes out of it is something that I never expected, because
Yeah.
I'm not trying to just stay and be somebody else. I'm still going to be authentically who I am. And my
Mhm.
inspired actions, like, ooh, exciting. I can't wait to do the thing.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I love what you're saying and I love what you're sharing, especially with the visual of the kid in the pool. It's like, so long as we try to conform to every single action step or piece of advice or guideline that we come across, it's almost like you remain with the floaties on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not even giving yourself the opportunity to try without floaties, or hang on to the edge for a minute, or you know what I mean, tread a little bit of water. So if you kind of, like you were saying, take what you take and leave the rest, take what resonates, but never capping yourself, never putting limitations on yourself, like it has to be, it must be this way. It's like, no, that is one way of doing it and it worked for this person or worked for these people, and maybe you can take that and do the same thing, or maybe you can take that and make it completely your own from a place of authenticity, right? So putting your own spin on it, putting your own flair on it. And I know in the coaching world, we're always encouraged to put our own flair on things, but sometimes that seems really difficult when we're trying to follow somebody else's program,
Right.
right? So I'm sure the people who are listening have had similar situations, whether it's in business, whether it's in, oh my gosh, like trying to be a certain type of wife or a certain type of mom, right? Like just falling into these umbrellas or these what do I want to call them? Oh my gosh, what's the word? I'm totally gapping here. Um Restrictions or constraints, that's not the word I'm looking for, but putting yourself in a bucket and
Right.
being like, well, I guess this is all that's available to me, which isn't the case, right? It's like, I was on my walk this morning, and right now is my favorite time to go walking in the fall because the leaves are changing. It's really beautiful here in the east coast of Canada. And as I was walking, it was funny because I looked down and I saw all the already fallen leaves. So they were already brown mostly, and they were dry and crunchy. So I walked through those in leaves, And then I looked a little bit more forward and there were more colorful leaves. And then I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, like look at this path, look at this trail, look at all the colors. So it comes back down to like perspective, right? And how you approach things. You can approach things very, very like meticulously, very thought out ahead of time, or you can kind of look up, let go of the control a little bit, and allow for things to almost present themselves to you. Because you can probably relate to this too, Carla. I know for me, if I'm too attached to something, like the way something must go, it does not allow for the spontaneous magic that is out there to kind of unfold, right?
Right. And when you're too focused, you get too in your head and you're not open for what your heart can bring in.
Hmm.
And the inspired action, I will tell you from my own experience, does not happen when you are so stuck in your head, because
No.
you have filtered everything out with your subconscious mind that could possibly inspire you to do anything off the trail. It's like having, like the horses that have the blinders on. It's like having that. You can only see straight ahead at what you want. And it keeps you from having all of these different, almost magical things come into your life that are there, and somebody else probably saw them but you didn't, because you're just so straight ahead and so in your head. And does that keep you from doing it? No, there's still always possibility, there's endless possibility, but it does slow you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does slow you down, and it keeps you in spaces where there's fear, um and you're like, I don't understand, I'm doing all the things, it's not getting me anywhere, because you're so stuck in your head.
Yeah. It's like, I think you said it, having a narrow mind, right? Like a narrow vision versus being open minded. So, for example, like when I go to create things in my business, in my life, I I like to have a guideline, right? So that I at least know the general area of where to aim. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
like I'm throwing confetti in the air and I don't know where it's going to land. Let's see. That might work for some people. For me, I like to have more of a strategy in the idea that I have a general idea of where this thing's going. Now, if things along the way present themselves, I'm like, ooh, I'm always curious, right? I like to lead from a place of curiosity. So if it pops up, I'll entertain it. I'll always entertain it. I might not invite it in, I might not take it on, but I'll entertain it and see, like, how can this impact what I'm doing? How might this influence? Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Right. And do kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
quick little evaluation and then move on. But it's like that saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Yes. Right.
And I love that so much. And I remember being younger and being like, what the heck? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Can't see the forest for the trees. The forest is made of trees. It's like, exactly. That is the point. Exactly. You miss it, right? You completely miss it when we're too attached to a specific outcome. And I find this a lot with clients too, when even when we're going through healing work and we're working towards certain goals, I can find them sometimes getting so attached to creating a specific result. So I like to encourage them, like, it is great to want to achieve results and meet your goals, but let's kind of release the reins a little bit on the specificities of what it is that you're trying to create, because you can be missing out on so much more, right? Like when people manifest, people who teach manifestation, the in my this is totally my opinion, the ones who are really good at it will teach you, you don't manifest something super specific without saying or something better at the end, right? Because when we're on a certain level, we can only see what is available to us on that level, or maybe a couple
Yes.
levels up. So as we grow, as we learn and develop, we access new information all the time. So you might set a goal, you might set something that you want to manifest or something you want to generate or create, but as you go along, that might shift, and so too do your results get to shift, right?
Yes, and the thing about that is, right, something could be even better.
Right.
And it made, I keep using all these analogies, but it made me think of when I wanted to make something, some kind of new food, I would look at multiple recipes and then pull things from it that really is like, ooh, I bet that's good, I bet this good, and then change it to what, and just try something new. And so when you're not keeping it so narrow, who knows what kind of thing that you're creating that could be like more than you ever dreamed of, and so much better than if you had just had it so constrained. It's like putting this is what I want and putting it in a cage instead of being open to like, what could I possibly create? What is something just like magical that I would have never dreamed of that could happen? And your life is exponentially more joyous when you are open to having different things happen. And if you, I mean, life does not happen on a line. We all know that. And so when we think we're going to create on a line, then all of this is filled with disappointment,
Right.
fear. And sometimes things that come up, you're like, I would have never guessed that. But this is like something that I didn't even know that I would want that came through because
Yeah.
I was open to while I'm generating what could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you're open, it's like you're open, you're receiving, right? When we're too narrow focused or narrow minded, it's almost like things bounce off like a ping pong ball.
Right.
All these things are coming at you, and you're just like, nope, 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 and you're just canceling them out. So I think a really good way that I would like to share for people to kind of open up to this is when you have an idea, right? Sit down. I'm a big paper and pen fan. I sit down and I put pen to paper and I start writing things out, and I do not limit myself. Even if I'm like, I have no idea where that thing's coming from or how I'm going to create that or how I'm going to get there or how I'm going to make that a thing. It doesn't matter. I write it down. So an easy way to kind of help start that process is to maybe write like your main idea or what it is that you want, and then ask yourself, and then what? Or what else? And just keep asking yourself that, because when you ask those questions, your brain will go to work at trying to solve that for you, right? Another thing that I heard that was super helpful is when you're trying to solve like a problem or create something and you have this question, like, how am I going to do it? Ask yourself the question very specifically, like, how am I going to generate $5,000 this month? Whatever, if that's what it is. We're going back to the money thing from the beginning. Ask yourself that question before you go to bed. Because while we're sleeping, our brain absolutely goes to work at solving all the problems for the next day and all the problems coming up.
Yep.
Right? So it's like your brain works for you in ways that you might not have ever known. And if you don't believe me, go Google that, because that is actually a thing. So you can actually solve problems while you sleep, which is super cool, right? And it just really starts with asking yourself really powerful and thought provoking questions.
And it is wonderful to have like a journal and a pen next to your bed so that when you wake up from all
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff, like just let it write and do almost like a free writing, like not even 1, 2, 3, 4, because more stuff can come up
Mm-hmm.
in those, because your brain waves are so different when you're falling asleep and when you wake up than they are the rest of the day. They just are. There's all kinds of studies that you can look up. And like Shanda was saying, like you go to sleep, and I'm sure people have woken up in the middle of the night with all of a sudden that like you couldn't think of something, you were talking to somebody and you couldn't remember something, and then you wake up in the middle of the night with that, because it's that your brain is in a totally different frequency. And so your it's all coming to you in a different way, and it's more open and more creative in some ways. When and so to have something, I have one of the best things that I've had my friends and my mentors tell me is have that, because when I wake up in the morning, I have more creative ideas than I have the rest of the day. And if I don't write them down because I go back to my normal schedule of stuff that I could do, I mean, we all have the things we every day we do. I'll forget. I'm like, what was I thinking earlier today?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that too, Carla. And I am a big fan of paper, pads and pens. I have them placed throughout my house, and one of them is beside my bed as well. And a little story about this, which I think is hilarious. Um, so ideas come to me in the middle of the night as well, right? I go to work at, okay, I need to figure this thing out. And then I go to sleep, let your brain stew. You end up falling asleep. And in the middle of the night, sure enough, wake up with some stuff. Oh my gosh, I have to write this down because you will forget it. Right.
Right.
So I have, and I wish my partner was here to, to vouch for me, but I have woken up in the middle of the night, not wanting to wake him up or disturb him during his sleep. So I've just felt in the dark for the pen and the paper, brought it over in my bed, and just started writing in the dark on the paper. To then him waking up and being like, "Are you writing right now?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "In the dark?" I'm like, "Yes." And he just laughed. But I was like, "Listen, this is just too good. I just gotta get it out." And then when I woke up in the morning and I looked at it, of course, it was like all going down the side of the page. It was kind of overlapped a little bit, but I could make sense of it enough to capture the idea of what it was that I wanted to capture. Right. So there's no point being, there's no wrong way of doing this. Do whatever you need to do. Another tip, in the shower or bathtub. I don't know why this is a place. Actually, I do. You're more relaxed and not overthinking and stuff. So my ideas tend to come to me when I'm doing those things as well. I've had some people say that they've ordered those. You can get whiteboards now that are like waterproof for the shower for that purpose. I don't have one of those, but I will have my phone like nearby if I can, and I'll just voice record, like stick my head out for a second and then capture it. Or if I'm driving, that's another time too. Just do a little voice recording, right? Hands free, just to capture the idea, and then you can go back to it later.
Right. And these ideas all go into creating and generating these things that you are like, ooh, this is what I really want in my life. Or like we said, even better, things can come. You never know when. You never know when.
Yeah. And the thing too that I really want to drive home about this is that when we're generating, when we're creating, it's really easy to be like, "Oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do this," and feel overwhelmed. Like, I have no idea how I'm going to make, let's just go back to the money thing. Say it was, your goal was 5,000, maybe you started hitting that. Now you're like, "I want to make $25,000 in a month." Like, I have no idea how to do that. Of course you don't have any idea how to do it. You've never done it. And it's okay. This is what you get to try and figure out. This is what you get to solve for. So it's really important. This was probably the best advice that I have ever heard when it comes to creating something. I'm like that kind of do all, be all. I want it now. I want to do it all. I want the results now. I need to know all the steps. I need to know everything in advance, right? Super controlling. Recovering controller here. Okay. So the best advice that I remember receiving around this topic was stay in the step that you're in, right? Take it one step at a time. You do not need to know the 25 steps to get there. You only need to know the first step or the next step to take to move you forward. And usually when you sit down and allow yourself to think in that way, it takes a lot of pressure off. The overwhelm kind of dissipates and you're like, "Oh, okay, well, logically, the next step would be this."
Right.
Great. Problem solved. Now take action and create it. Right?
Right. And when you're not stuck on the steps, because when you're stuck on steps, it's this how many steps, you are like, I have this many left, instead of like, wow, look at how far I've come. Look at all that I've done. And things, nothing is the answer to any problem. It's just all creating. And sometimes you ask for something, you're like, what? When you get it, you're like, why did I get that? Like, I wanted to travel more this year. I will tell you guys that only 1 month this year have I not traveled. Things just keep coming up. I am happy. I've never appreciated home so much at the same time, by the way. But if you look at all these things that you've done and you're like, wow, I really accomplished this, instead of like, where's my goal? I've not got that. That's the answer. And then let me go on to the next goal. Like, it's all part of a journey. Just like healing's a part of a journey, creating and generating is part of a journey. If you look at each thing as part of your journey instead of a check off your list, like, it's all about experiencing life and truly being this authentic, beautiful self that can create all kinds of things. All kinds of things. What do you want? What do you like? What do you desire? What are the things that you've always wanted to do? and then creating things to make that happen.
Yeah. A couple points just to touch on what you were saying around, first of all, appreciating your steps, each step, really appreciating the step, but also acknowledging yourself for taking the step and making the moves.
Yes.
Right. So I love that. And there will come a time, guaranteed, if you've never done something and you're doing something new, where you will not know, you will not have the answer per se. And you might, so it might be like a bit of a block of like, I don't even know. We usually have the answer inside. I will lead with that. But what I want to offer as well for some people who really just feel stuck in that, you might not know, but I can guarantee you that there are people who do know. So go find those people and go talk to those people, right? Connection, create connection, get into conversation, communication, right? With other people who can maybe give you advice or help you along, or maybe it's somebody that you could even hire to help you with the process. And the other part, going back to not knowing or maybe having too many ideas, that can be my problem over here. I'm like, ooh, 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 ooh. And I'm like, hey, hang on a minute, brain, slow down. I love the ideas, but slow down for a second. And then I get all confused and overwhelmed while I'm like, well, which one do I pick? I have 17 to pick from.
Right.
So another thing that I learned through my process so far and creating, and I'm going to do something here, is when we have, let's say, 2 or 3, I wouldn't do too many more than 3. But when we have a few ideas, what can be helpful, again, is to take pen and paper and write them down on separate pieces of paper and put them on the floor. Okay. So you have one this direction, one this direction, one this direction. Maybe you could even have 4, one behind you, whatever. But don't overdo it here. And ask yourself which one feels right for me at this time. And you go one by one and you step toward the thing, whatever the paper says. You feel it in your body, you picture it in your mind, and then you step back to neutral, coming back to neutral. Then you step forward to whatever the one in front of you is, feel it in your body, picture it in your mind, and then step back. So make sure you step back in the middle, coming back to neutral every time in between each one. And usually people gain a lot of insight here when they're doing this, right? Because again, all of our problems come from overthinking. So if we can drop out of our head and into our heart and feel for our answers, right? They likely come, and it's likely like a no-brainer. You're just like, I don't know why, but boom, it's this one. Go with that, right? Lead with your heart, lead with the feeling, not the thinking.
Yes. And that's the reason we have intuition. That's the reason why we have inspired action.
Yeah.
Inspired action does not come from your head.
Nope.
Trusting your intuition will take you way farther than your brain solving all of your problems. I love how Shanda is saying that, like, seriously, and practice using the feelings to make decisions on stuff like that. Like, trust you have to learn to trust yourself, to trust your intuition, to trust your body, to trust your gut. Your heart has so many, it has way, we don't give our heart credit for all that it can do. We've made the brain like the most important problem solver, but our heart, and it's not just about emotion. There's the magnetic field from your heart, by the way, is larger than the magnetic field from your brain. Look it up. Plenty of studies will show you that. And so when you really trust yourself to feel into, like Shanda is saying, you'll be like, you might even be shocked at what you choose of the 3 things.
Yeah.
And then you're like, really, all of a sudden things will come to you about all the reasons why this would be so great for you, but you never realized it because you were so in your head about these are the things and this is probably the order I should do. But when you really are doing, like Shanda's saying, just like letting your intuition guide you.
Yeah, I love that so much because when you were speaking and when you were sharing, what came up for me was when we are creating from a place of authenticity, a place of our own heart and our own genius. By the way, everybody has their own genius.
Yes.
It's already inside of you. It's accessible at any given time. You just have to learn how to tap into it. Okay. When we create from that place, there are no limits. literally no limit. So if you ever come to a point where you're like, I don't know, you can figure it out. Like, it is solvable always, as
Yes.
opposed to when we are trying to follow somebody else's way to a T, and somebody else's advice to a T, and not taking our own um, um, spin on it. It's very limiting, because here's what happens. You take some steps forward, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, what's next? You have to keep asking for the
Mm-hmm.
next step, right? So it's almost like you disconnect from your own genius, from your own ingenuity, your own creativity, because you're borrowing somebody else's. So I'm not saying that that's wrong. That is great. It's a great place to start. That's why there's guides, mentors, coaches, all these things, healers, because that's what we do. We guide you. But hopefully what we're guiding you toward is to use your own intuition, right? So it's like, first you don't know how to, then you learn how to, and then you know how to, right? So it's kind of like those stepping stones. So I always say it, and I will say it again. My goal is never to have a forever client. I would love for people to stay with me, because I am constantly growing and evolving and adding to my business. So I do have people that have been with me for a few years. That being said, you might reach a point where you're taking a different turn, and you need different type of coaching or a different type of support, and that's totally fine, right? I think it's really beautiful to create like a toolbox that is generated from more than one person. So you go to Carla for something, you come to me for something, you go to somebody else for something else, because you're getting all these different experiences, perspectives, and geniuses, right? From all these different people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we all have different ways, and teach you different things to get you out of the programming in your head into your heart. And that's the beauty of having somebody to guide you, to teach you, because we're programmed in so many ways. That's where the I don't knows come from. Because when the answer has come to you in the past for something, whatever, probably as a child, somebody shut you down and told you that your idea, the way of solving it was wrong. And so that's where I don't know. That's where the uncertainty comes from. It's not, uncertainty isn't because you really don't know. It's because someone has shut you down. And so you don't trust what you do know. You
Right.
don't trust your own genius. You don't trust to connect to yourself and be like, I've got this. Like, I have my own special, unique, beautiful way of solving this problem that nobody else would have.
Right.
And somebody else might not think that mine's great, but that's okay, because that's not the answer for them. That's the answer for me.
Yeah. So I love this topic so much. And as I was walking this morning, it was on my heart. And it's interesting because, like I was saying to you, Carla, before we recorded, I see themes, right? I always see themes in my clients and my friends and people around me, and in my own life too.
Right.
And what I was thinking about this morning was this, and I created a post around it. So you guys, we're recording a couple weeks in advance right now, but it's just before Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. So anyways, when we have okay, so what is a pattern? Let me back up a little bit. A pattern is something created from a place of lack. Okay, pattern created from something we're lacking, whether it's love, whether it's worthiness, belonging, whatever it is. Okay, so a pattern is created from a place of lack, and the antidote, okay, everybody listening, the antidote that I've come up with to break these patterns, because patterns will keep showing up in different ways in our lives, in ways that we might not even know until we start to actually investigate. The way to break the pattern is to go and generate the very thing that you feel you're lacking. I know it sounds like, what? That sounds counterintuitive in a sense, but it's so true. So let me give you an example. If you feel like you're lacking love in your life, you're like, I feel disconnected from my family, I don't feel like I have a really good connection with people or my spouse, or maybe I don't even have a spouse, I'm lacking love. This is the universe's invitation for you to fulfill this soul desire. So when we see something that's whether it's in our life or somebody else's life, when we see these things, those are invitations to create those things. Yes. Right? When we have ideas, you're meant to create it. So if you're lacking love and you have a pattern of not feeling lovable or not worthy or whatever it is, the antidote is to go and generate love. What can you do today to generate love? Right? I was saying to a client, if you could pretend you were literally a generator, right, that powers houses and stuff like that. If you were a generator, you can make yourself look however beautiful, bedazzled, jeweled up, whatever you want. Flick yourself on. How can you generate love? And to follow that up, it has nothing to do with creating an expectation of getting anything in return, right? Generating is outward focused. We are generating, we are giving, we are sharing, we are creating. And I just felt like I wanted to share that with you, because had I known that antidote or that equation way earlier on, things would have been easier for me. So I hope that it kind of simplifies things and makes it easier to understand how we can go about solving the challenges that we have in our lives.
Right. And as you go into your antidote, realize, have some awareness about what patterns you've done in the past. No judgment. Do not judge yourself. Your pattern served you for a reason. Yep. And if you need to go and figure out why, then, that's why you have people to support you with that. You don't have to know why you have the pattern. But as you're creating, as you're going to this, like Shanda said, into this invitation, realize if you have awareness for the things that are come up, you're like, ooh, this didn't serve me in the past when I wanted exactly this thing, when I wanted to create it. And this kept me in that lack. I wanted love, but I avoided intimacy.
Right.
I avoided having that true connection, when this is like your invitation to truly connect with a human being, to share your heart and be vulnerable well, and allow them to do the same. And so that invitation is, it's all, you grow in that invitation. It's not all about, okay, I had this invitation, here's love. Like right. What Shanda's saying is you're changing your patterns. You're creating such beautiful things. And in doing that, you have to be open to, what are the things in the past that I've done to block this out?
Yeah. And that said, it's scary, guys. It's going to feel scary. It's going to feel, let me correct what I said. It's going to feel scary because it's unknown. We do not know what's going to happen. It's not predictable because it's not our pattern. It's not within our comfort zone. It's not our normal. And it's okay, right? I can guarantee you, having a conversation with someone, I think I can almost guarantee you, is not going to kill you, right? Neither is feeling the feeling of fear. Feeling scared is not going to kill you. It's a feeling. It might be uncomfortable. It might last for seconds. It might last for minutes, but it will go away, right? And I wanted to bring up something too that you had touched on around finding out why it happened or whatever. And then you said why is not important. And I do want to say that because sometimes we get stuck in the why, and the why can trip us up and keep us stuck. So instead of focusing on so much on why did this thing happen or why is this one of my patterns, another way to look at it would be asking yourself, who do I get to become without this pattern? Yes. Right? So letting go of the old pattern, and we don't even need to know why. We already know it's not serving us because we're stuck, right? Yep. So letting go of the old one and asking yourself, who do I get to become on the other side of this, right? I remember for me, one of my big transitions recently actually was going from being a single mom to not being a single mom, right? So I have a partner and we've blended our lives now. And that was a big identity shift for me, going from I'm always a single mom, life is hard, whatever, right? All the things, to being, who do I get to become now that I'm no longer a single mom? So it's lovingly stepping into this new identity without even kind of worrying about the whys, right?
Right, because that's just what got you through that point in time. And that's the important part. Like you understanding that you have patterns and seeing them so that you cannot do what you've always done to always get the results that you've always gotten
Yes.
is more important than the why. Now, if you have to reach out to somebody because for some reason you're stuck in the why, then do so. But it is not important, like Shanda was just saying. And I have similar stuff with Shanda. Like I was a single mom for a very long time and learning to depend on somebody else and not take them supporting me as them saying I've done something wrong was a huge deal for me because my patterns had been I'm supposed to do everything to be lovable, to be worthy. And I had to look at, because if you don't look at your own patterns, like I had this amazing thing in front of me, but I was swatting it away out of the fear, out of sticking to my patterns that had worked for me in a way of survival.
Yeah.
But when we're generating and we're creating, we're not in survival. And those patterns are what kept us there. And so being aware of them, making changes, being like what Shanda said, hey, who knows? Who knows what's going to come from this? Like, I am sure before you and your partner got together, this was never even in your imagination of what was going to be happening. And what,
Yeah.
not even at the beginning. And then you just grow and change as you notice your patterns.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying it did keep you alive. That's what they're for.
Right. Right. I always go back to the analogy of like a phone or technology. Our patterns, they served a purpose at one point.
Mm-hmm.
They were very useful and they kept us alive, right? Kept us going, kept us thriving. But like any type of technology or device, it needs updates, right? You can't run on one program forever. We
Yeah.
need to upgrade our phones, our computers, our tablets, whatever, even like GPS. If you don't update those, you might end up with some roads that aren't open anymore, or maybe they're under construction, right? So it's important. We need to update our own programs too. And so I love that point, throwing that out there where our patterns are not something to hate or to be like disgruntled about. We get to be appreciative that we were resourceful enough to come up with those patterns and those strategies to get through whatever it was we needed to get through, because at the end of the day, we're still here, we're still alive because of them. Okay. And that being said, that's not the end. This is not the end. As far as I'm concerned, it's the beginning, and you get to create and generate anything and everything you want from here. I don't care where you are in your life right now, you can literally create anything. Okay. Carla and I have done it for ourselves. And if you ever want to pick my brain or her brain, I would love to. I know she would too.
Yes.
I'm totally talking for you, Carla, but you can pick our brains and
Right.
ask us questions. And speaking of asking questions, if you guys have questions, if there's something that we talked about here today that is maybe feels sticky for you or resonates with you, let us know in the comments below so that we can open up a bigger conversation and take this conversation further. Okay. So before we wrap up, Carla, I'd love to know, is there anything else that's on your heart today that you feel like you want to share with them around generating and creating?
Um, just remember, no matter how it's gone for you in the past, no one is completely stuck. You can you can start from now and create something totally different than what you have in the past. There is not you are not exempt from being able to do it. Everybody has the ability.
Yeah, I love that. I love it so much. Never look to your past for the answers. That is
Yes.
how you recreate the same.
Yes.
So if we feel complete here on this conversation, I know that I do.
Yes.
I would love to continue this further in the chat, but I just want to take a moment here with Carla to thank you guys for tuning into this channel from head to heart and home with Carla and I. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we know you did. Come on,
Right.
you did. Be sure to click the subscribe button so that you get the notifications of all of our newest episodes. Also, I want to invite you to share this channel with friends or family if you feel like that is something that is on your heart. because that is what will help our free content reach more people and have a greater impact, which is what we were trying to do with this channel. So be sure to join us next week for another connected conversation. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.